I'm the Moon Mama.
I see dead people.
And the Gandhress.
It's the Gandhress. I'm like Gandhi. Only thing is, I have hair and I don't really help anyone.
And don't forget,
Dharma of the dog. The best way to get good karma is to give a snack. Ding, 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 ding.
and the mystic Manx.
When the moon is at its height and things go bump in the night, when goosebumps on your neck begin to conquer fear, the way out is in.
Listen to our podcast as we discuss subjects such as life, relationships, paranormal activity, sex, food, spirituality, and more. Be part of the show by submitting your letters and questions, and we'll read them on the air.
Now, on with our show! I'm a genie in the bottle, baby!
Good morning. This is the Moon Mama.
Good morning, and this is the Gandhress.
Okay, so I want to share something from this morning that I just made me laugh out loud. So the Gandhress last night, we went to this yoga class with a friend of ours, and so we're just chatting, and we're always chatting about just off the wall different things and ideas that we have. And so the Gandhress tells me just out of nowhere, I'm writing a song. And I'm like, okay, that's great. We're going to definitely have you do this on the air tomorrow. But then she actually sent me a recording, and I have to play it.
Oh.
I have to play it. It is so adorable. It made me laugh. So listen to this.
Chico, yeah. Chico, yeah. Chico, do you have a gun for me? I said a boom to the left, a boom to the right, a boom to the left, my name is Chico.
So I just get this. I just get this sent to me. No explanation. It's just sent.
My name is Chico. Chico, yeah. Chico, yeah. Chico, do you have a gun for me?
You sing it. You can sing with it if you want.
You move
To the left,
You
oh,
move to the right, you move to the left.
My name is Chico.
My name is Chico. I said you move it up and down,
Yeah.
then you move it around. Oh, my name is Chico. Chico, yeah. Chico, yeah.
Yeah.
Chico, do you have a dance for me?
So it's like out of nowhere, I just get this thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, we are so funny. We're so much alike, like sending ridiculous recordings, and there's like no inhibition whatsoever on your part.
Well, when I'm in my kitchen, I was just, I'm looking forward to going on a vacation, and anyway, so it's a Caribbean vacation, so I just was getting in the mood, and all of a sudden this just comes to me. I'm like, well, what the hell? Where's this coming from? I've never heard the song before.
Is this the song that you were telling me about though last night?
It just was like coming to me, and it was a rough draft, but then I started recording it because I thought, there's not enough Caribbean music out there. Right? I mean, I could just see like a guy and a girl that actually could sing, doing something
You can
like
sing.
that.
You can hold a tune, and you clearly were hearing music in your head.
Well, when it
What would be funny is if Mr. Niggle put some Caribbean music to it.
I think so, and I think that if it becomes a big hit, it should be called the Kitchen Song.
Okay, so you wrote your first song called the Kitchen Song. That's really good that you actually heard music.
I do.
That's
I have
good.
to keep track more often. It's.
You are so hilarious. Okay, so speaking of last night, because we were talking about, we went there, and then right after the yoga class, you stayed for a documentary, so we should probably talk about that because it's a pretty socially conscious topic right now, which is all about non-GMO and really like looking beyond just the immediate gratification of your life right now, but looking like literally 7 generations forward, which is a Native American accustomed to do, and yet it's like we've gotten so far away from doing that by just taking the immediate gratification and doing what's best for us right now, not looking at the repercussions of what it's going to do to future generations. So I saw the first half of it, and it's interesting because from the first half of it, a lot of it was knowledge like that I already knew because I had listened to there's a documentary called The Next 7 Generations, and it's put out by the 13 indigenous grandmothers, and it's a movement, and they're all Native American, and it's very magical how they all came together. They're all from different countries, and their whole movement is about being conscious about the next move that we take every day of our lives, to understand that what we do today affects people in the next generations. So the movie to me had the essence of that, which I had already looked into, and then it also talked about how our society has become more of a the way Joseph Campbell talked about it was, he would say that we've become an economic society instead of the spiritual society, which we used to be. When, like, you look at the indigenous people, it was all based on spirituality,
right?
And now we've moved into this thing where it's all about the economics of it and making choices based on economics first, spirituality later, and because of that, we're having some of these problems. So so some of that was all, it was old information to me being said in a new way, but I liked their packaging because they were incorporating disease and other things. So tell me your interpretation of the movie, and just, I don't know, you saw the second half, I didn't see, so.
Well, this was the first time that I've ever seen this documentary, but it sucked me in because, you kind of go into it with I know the GMOs are not good for you and this and that, but it wasn't something where you felt like you were being lectured to. It was very interesting of how they show us as our human roots and how, being involved, that we are part of nature. It's not like there's us and then there's nature. We are part of that, and just to really gives you that sense of it. I can't articulate it the way it needs to be articulated.
I think he said something like, I can't latch on to exactly because I need to watch it again to get their exact wording, but the impression I was left with was that we have to look at our connection, like you're talking about, between ourselves and nature as the same as breathing. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's it's the breath, the air, everything. It's all connected. And so when we think that we're making these isolated decisions to do this or create that, and we're using up a lot of resources, and we're definitely a society that overuses resources. I mean, I saw a documentary. I can't remember what it was called, and Mr. Nickel can help me with that later, and I'll put it on the podcast or the blog later, but it was really shocking because it talked about how much food we actually produce in the world, right?
Yeah.
And how much of that is thrown out because they package it and then there's the expiration dates. And it was about these people who, it's a whole movement of people that literally go to Whole Foods, and they go to Trader Joe's, and they literally go dumpster diving into it because they throw away all the prepackaged foods, like the meats and everything, because it's a day overdue.
They're so afraid of being sued that they don't want to just give it.
Right. Yeah. So instead of donating it, and those are, suggested use-by dates. Those don't mean that the day that it hits, you can't eat that food anymore, right? You have to look at it. Right. And it was really shocking. And I mean, the percentage was high. It was an 80% of the food we create in the world gets thrown out. It was really high. It was shockingly high. And so there's this movement of these people that's what they do, is they go in and they don't spend one dime on their grocery bill every week. They go out and they go into these places and they literally get all of their fresh meats, so much fresh meat and food that they have to have an outside freezer, those big freezers that people would put in their garage. that it's filled to the max with meats and stuff, because this is what they do. So much is thrown out, and they know exactly when the food gets taken out. They wait for the store to close, and then they go in and they hop the fence, because now Trader Joe's and probably Whole Foods too, but at the time they were showing Trader Joe's that they actually had all of it locked. Like they have their trash area completely locked, because this was becoming an issue where people were going in at night and taking things
The new
out.
raccoon.
Yeah, the human raccoons, right? Like they want to eat. But what's wrong with that? Like it just seems to me like instead of them looking at it as a nuisance, like why not create a movement that helps feed people with this food? But then you have this weird law thing, right? Where their hands are tied legally, so even if they wanted to open that food up to people legally, they can't, because the government has said it's illegal to sell. But I wonder, it's illegal to sell, but is it illegal to give away?
I think what they're probably thinking is how are they going to sell the product if people know that the next day or that later that day they can get it for free. So,
right, and so it comes down. Oh, that's so true, because then now it comes down to it's again an economic decision.
Right.
And the reality is that people would still buy the food they need to buy, and people would still, who are in need, would go, because it's work. Like this documentary shows, it is not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody wants to climb into a dirty dumpster and pull their food out. Not everybody can even stomach the idea of doing that, but
you're hungry enough, you would.
But the difference is like you're not pulling out half-eaten food from other people. I mean, that's really like homeless do that. They go in because that's the only way they're getting their food, right? And they will do that. So it's still dirty job, because you're jumping into a dumpster to pull it out. But this is stuff that literally, like, they took out, big 10-gallon bags, like trash bags, filled all with like steak meat and it's exactly packaged the way it's in the store. So, and they would just pull these huge bags out. One bag's all produce, one bag is all steak meat, one bag is whatever, I mean, they were all thrown into these big bags, and then these people are literally, but they're having to get into the garbage and pull it out. They're also having to, basically it's kind of like a B&E. They're breaking and entering because they have it locked. But it's one of those things that, like, the security guard at one point came out, and the guy just told him, like, they don't try and arrest him, because he tried to steal some trash, put him in jail. They're not going that far with it, but they did hire security to try and keep people out of that. And I just thought it was interesting. But the guy on the show, you see security come, and then the security guard just says, dude, the guy walks up to him and tells him, this is what we're doing. And he's like, dude, I totally understand that and respect what you're doing, because I understand feeding your family, and that this is like really, this is basically good food that's being thrown out, but I'm hired by the store. You can't basically go into there and it's stealing, but not stealing, because it's already out on it's in the trash. Like, if it were out not in their space that's locked up, then anyone has access to trash, right? It becomes like public property. If you put your trash can out on the street, it's not your property. But I wish you guys could see this. Out of nowhere, the Gandhress lifts up her arm and smells her armpit.
I was just checking if it was me.
You are too funny.
I think it's the Mystic Kitty, but I'm wondering though, can a letter be written to, say, the CEOs of Trader Joe's or Whole Foods, what have you? Why hasn't there been more made of it, as far as like, why can't they just donate it strictly, just go directly to food banks? Is there?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me. And you know what? I mean, this was quite a while, several years ago, that I watched this documentary, but I believe letters were written to different places that were known for doing it, where these people were dumpster diving, and I don't think that they got the traction that they wanted. It was like every legal department basically said, you can't do it, we understand the need, but we have legal restraints, ...
Maybe the laws should be change then.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, when I think if we focused more on, we see where the need is and the people are showing us where the need is by doing things like this, then why not take what their companies are seeing as a problem, and why not flip that and turn it into the answer to a problem, but then back it up, have the company back it and create a movement for change.
Right.
And I think that part of what the movie was talking about, the documentary was talking about, it's called Origins. It's
good.
Yeah, it's talking about that. It's not people not being conscientious to do something, and I think there's something that struck me as really interesting too. When Obama was first elected, I don't know if he was elected yet, and it was in his speech, I think, when he was campaigning, but I always remembered it. He was talking about what happened at 9/11 and how the buildings came down, and talking about how I don't even know what condition they're in right now, but when he was talking about it, nothing had still been rebuilt, nothing had been done, and it was just sitting there, this painful wound. It's like, turn it into a monument or do something that's going to stimulate hope so people can move on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he was talking, it was in that regard, but he was saying in general, he said, that was a great opportunity that the president missed, Bill Bush at the time. He missed that opportunity to ask people to do something about it, like asking people to get involved. That's what I'm saying. And it's like, if you don't ask people to get involved, then they don't, right? So like, if you're the president and
right.
you stand up and you say, I would like, we're doing this movement, and we would like everybody to, at least once a month start volunteering a couple hours somewhere, or do something, or donate money once a month, or do something to some charity. Or the people that are in power, I think they get so bogged down with all the duties that they have to do that they don't ever ask the people to do anything. And when they don't do that, people don't organize. Some people will do it because they're natural born leaders.
Right.
But could you imagine the difference if like our world leader just said, we want everybody to get involved. Please go out and do this. Everyone who's listening will then go, am I going to do it?
But maybe we should make it more clear to the world leaders that this is something that we want, especially when it comes to election time. How about, how come we're throwing 80% of the food away? As president, if you are elected, what are you going to do about it? And then make that a platform. If they feel that the presidency is on the line, then perhaps they'll address it. We have to let them know too that this is an important thing to us, and if you want to be elected, you have to address the
concerns of the people and how the problems.
How is this going to be? How does this make sense to you that we're throwing away 80% of the food?
Yeah.
What would be your plan?
Exactly. And you know what, that just reminded me of that saying that, like, with companies, when we talk about GMO and stuff, even though we had that election here and it didn't work, we didn't get rid of the...
But it was close.
It was very close, and I think a lot of it was people just still had so many people had no idea what GMO was, and they didn't understand that it's not good for you.
Right.
So they just voted. However, they didn't vote for it because they really didn't understand. But what is interesting about it, and we're seeing it now, it didn't pass, right? But we're seeing people on their own labeling things non-GMO. And the reason being is because we may not have won that fight, but a company will always follow the winning horse. Okay?
There you go. Yeah.
They follow where the money goes. Okay, so if we say we ain't buying it, until you put the label on it, then all of a sudden they're not getting the same profits. They're like, well, stick a label on it and let's make it non-GMO, because now that's important to the public, and if they're not going to buy it and we're going to lose money, then we're going to support it, whether it's a kind of a spiritual conscientiousness on their part or not. Some companies it is. Other companies, they're just following the winning horse.
Right.
The political figures are the same way, right? When it's election time, they follow the votes.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, if this is a concern, what are you going to do about it? You're not going to get my vote unless you do something about the things that I'm concerned about. And these are age-old problems, right? Feeding the needy and stuff. And yet I just think it's, Joseph Campbell said it best, where he said, I don't think I'm changing the world, but I'm changing people, and that's what matters. And he said that there's a great documentary on him. It's called Sukha. It's spelled Sukhavati, Sukhavati, Sukhavati. But when you listen to him, they call it Sukhavati. Mm-hmm. And it's a great DVD that puts together all these little bits and pieces of clips of things that he said, lectures, and they weave it together with pictures of indigenous people when he talks about spirituality and religion and all these other things, and how we are an economic society versus a spiritual society. And it's got a very hopeful, tone to the whole thing. But he talks about Buddhism and applies it to how we live our life and the cycle of life. It's beautiful.
That's what it has to be. Is now it's the application. We have with the internet, YouTube. We have so much information, but it comes down to now. Okay, you have the phrases, you have the meanings, but how do you apply it in your everyday life? The application, as long as it's in your little four walls in your mind, it doesn't really make a change. Right. Even the smallest amount of change is bigger than the largest amount of thought, right?
Right. You just made me think of something too. I have a whole library of documentaries and DVD. We have our DVD library too of educational, conscientious awareness. Yeah. And The Secret, pretty much everyone knows about the book The Secret, but they also have a DVD, and it's an amazing DVD. But one of the things that always stuck out to me was that it's like you're saying, you can have the thought, or have the understanding mm-hmm. of the concept of something, but it doesn't mean anything if you don't take action in your own life. And it isn't you don't have to go out and say, okay, I'm going to create this movement and change the whole world. You can't fathom something that big.
Just recycle something that day.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it starts with you, right? And what you're saying is actually in alignment with what I'm saying, regardless of what topic it is. It's about taking an action in your own life. So you have this thing that bothers you and you want to change it in the world, or you're living a certain way and you don't want to be that way anymore. Maybe it's how you think, or maybe it's your cynicism, maybe it's you want to change that people have access to food, or you don't like how people are wasteful and don't throw everything in the garbage. I mean, it could be any number of concepts that make an impact on the world, but it all funnels down to we have to take action. And in The Secret, it says our job is to act, right? So they show this thing in this section of this girl who's very lonely, and she's sad and she's alone and doesn't have family. And you see they have her showing her, sitting out, looking out, I think at the ocean, and you can read everything about it as she's lonely. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have anyone in her life. And all she wants is to have, someone in her life to talk to and share things with. And then they show her out on the beach, the same beach. She's just walking on the beach, and people are, these group of people are playing volleyball, and one of them hits the ball and it lands right in front of her, and she picks it up and hands it to the person. The person says thank you, and he starts to walk away and looks back and tells her, waves her, and come on, be part of the game. Yeah. And then she has this few seconds to make a decision about, are you going to stay stuck in the way your concept of your life is, or are you going to let go and actually take action to get what you want? She has this few seconds to make this decision.
It's letting go of her identity as being the neglected one.
Yes, exactly. Right? And then and then you see she gets this big smile on her face and she joins the game, and then after the game they say, come on, we're gonna go have dinner, and they're and you don't hear any words, you're just seeing hearing this inspirational music, and it's all done through body language and waving and looking back and smiling, you're reading all the emotions from their facial expressions to their hand signals of incorporating her into their group. And but it all of that stemmed from taking an action. it's one person taking an action. So you don't have to look at this big, huge problem in the world and go, how can I change the world? No, you look at it and say, how do I change myself
Exactly.
first?
Like that Buddha saying where it's, you know, it's better to look at one thing that you can change than the entire world having to change. In other words, fix one fault of your own, or if you want to call it a fault, rather than to look at 1,000 of another's. Right?
Yeah. I had a neighbor that used to live across from me, and when we lived in a different apartment, and he was Buddhist, and so of course, you know, I would always, we'd have conversations, doorstep conversations, and and he, you know, I'd tell him, and I'm very fascinated. At the time, I didn't really know anything about Buddhism, and I was like, you know, do you mind if just periodically I ask you a question? And he's like, sure, you know, go for it. So one day we're both on the doorstep, you know, and I asked him about if you could put all of Buddhism, because of course there's so many things about Buddhism, and this was really an impossible question I was asking him, but if you could put it all into like one phrase of what Buddhism is, what would it be? Now that's a ridiculous question to ask of anybody.
Actually, I don't think so. Because it's all about your perception. It's
True. Well, he had an answer, boom, like that.
It shouldn't be the same for everybody.
Yeah, he had an answer, and it really spoke to me, and I've never forgotten it, and it was very true. And it goes along with what we're talking about being you make the change. He said, he just kind of looked up and was thinking, he goes, well, I guess I would say that, you know, people in the world are trying to look outside of themselves to have something save them.
Right.
Or, you know, to everyone else needs to do the changing, and then the world will be a better place. And he said in Buddhism, we say, look within yourself and change yourself.
Love it.
And that is a platform for everything, because it always comes down to that. Just like the blog, right? I was like just, you know, talking shit about every every experience I had that day when I left the sanctuary of my warm home, and I go out and I'm dealing with, you know, mediocrity everywhere, you know, and I'm perceiving it that way, you know, all these little obstacles and people driving like nuts, and you know, and you know, buying all this stuff, and then someone going, oh, do you want a bag? Well, no, I want to carry this stacked up to my eyebrows, you know. Of course I want a bag. What do you want? What do you
I've got
think?
stretchy pants.
Yeah, like what do you think, you know?
So I wore a large bra today. I'm good. Yeah.
You know, exactly. So I'm like, okay. So getting irritated with all that mediocrity and ridiculousness, and just people not taking the next step to think about stuff, or people driving like they're on crack. And here I am getting annoyed, right, at all of this stuff, but not, you know, I'm not acting out on it. I'm not like raging or anything. I'm just taking it all in, and I'm being annoyed by it. But I'm still happy, have a good disposition, but I think in my blog I'm like, fucking idiots, you know, like that's how my mind is saying that to myself. But then it's like you made a comment on the blog, and it was literally like to go watch it, and I actually watched what was his name, Rinpochen.
Yeah, we were just going to call him Rin because we couldn't remember the name, but he was...
Yeah, but anyway, he did a whole thing about how to deal with negative people, and it really came back to I was the negative one. Because everybody else was just fine. I was the one that had the negative concept of what was going on, and so it all came back to me, and that's how it is in life. It's all about... my concept of what was going on was the negative thought. Or
not so much that they weren't negative and that you were.
They weren't negative. They were just...
Well,
it was kind of stupid. Like there's so... Like one person like doing something stupid, like the bag person. She wasn't negative. She was just being kind of stupid. Like, why wouldn't you like ask the person, do they need a bag? Because that's your whole job, is to check people out, give them a bag, or not give them a bag if they don't want one.
She's following policy, though.
Well, she was, but she should have asked me. That's the thing. It's like everyone at the counter, when they're checking out, they ask. Like at Whole Foods, they ask you, would you like a bag?
Yeah.
If you know, or do you want to deduct your bag? They have to ask. That's part of their job. She didn't do that. So to me, I was like, this is so dumb. Like, I'm not thinking about that, because I'm thinking she's just going to give me a bag. Some places give it to you for free still, right? So there's this thing that you don't know, and I hadn't been there forever to even know what their policy on bag giving was, right? So for that one, I was just irritated at the stupidity. Like, you should have asked me that before I closed out my sale, and then I'm like standing there with nothing. So I was irritated by that. And the other person, it was just crazy driving.
Yeah.
Like, just like they're on crack.
Yeah.
But they weren't negative per se. They were just doing things that were irritating me. What was negative was what was going on in my mind, because I'm like calling him a fucking idiot in my head. And
Yeah.
you know, so the concept was, it was me.
Or it contributes to perhaps already a negative situation. You don't want to have those things collect little tiny particles until they become a big thing. Or it becomes out of context. That gets you in a bad mood. And then when somebody that doesn't deserve it, you know, what have you, and you snap at them and you're less than perhaps present with them because you're allowing that to pull from your psyche.
Yeah.
I think that's what he was trying to say. If you're looking for the bad in someone, you'll find it.
Oh, for sure.
You know, so it's more, I think, is looking at the situation versus the person, because it could be, a person that is a terrible clerk or a terrible driver, but maybe in some circumstances they're wonderful people. You don't know.
Right.
So it's like, I don't like the action of the way that the person's driving. She could have.
Yeah, but like that's what I was saying. They weren't bad people. They weren't doing it like they weren't these negative like people that were just evil and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was literally situational. It was the situation that was annoying to me.
Yeah, because it's always seeing it from the ego too, when it's having to have an enemy. When you have that, you know, this I'm right, this is wrong. It creates that, you know, it becomes part of, you become part of the cycle. And so I think with what from my understanding is you observe, and then you get for what you're going to get, and then let it go.
Yeah.
And I know that's harder, easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's the goal, is to remain neutral to the situation versus bringing it into your
being.
Yeah, your landscape, your being. Exactly.
That is so true too, because it's almost, if you can get to that neutral place, it's almost as though it doesn't exist, right? Like it made no impact whatsoever, you know, and I think when you know those things, it does not mean, at least in my experience and people that I've worked with, it does not mean that you are never going to have those thoughts, or that you're not going to get irritated. And I think sometimes people are trying to achieve that type of perfection, which is not reality. That doesn't make, like, as if that would make them finally a spiritual person, and that isn't what it is. Right, because you're still going to have those thoughts. For me, it's been, you still have those thoughts, you still have those days. It's how quickly do you recover from them.
Exactly.
Right, like back in the day, you know, if I had what I would call a dark day where just things were so heavy on me, it might last for a full week. And then the more that you understand about, you know, beingness and right thinking in order to not hover in those negative thoughts, and it's like a process over a long period of time, you kind of develop these wisdoms, right? Then you learn, like, okay, now when something happens, I might be in it, and then an hour later I'm completely out of it. Like, I'm not hovering on it. Like, that situation happened that day, and I came home and I blogged about it, and I was over it. It was like, okay, I'm back in my sanctuary. And it never even impacted me as a, like, deep in my soul, you know, irritation with people. It was like a passing irritation that it meant not. I you know, blogged about it, and then I was done with it, and just realized, okay, it's me. You know, I need to not take that in and make such a big deal out of it.
Did I tell you that saying though? You can't help, like, a thought. You can't help a thought coming into your mind, just like you can't help a bird flying over your head, but you don't have to let them make a nest in your hair.
That's right.
Right? So that's where awareness kicks in.
Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's just being aware of human nature across the board, understanding that you are just as much part of that, having compassion for yourself as you would anyone else. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have the process of feeling anger. You will feel anger. You will feel this. Yeah. But it's just, I'm aware of this. I see how this rises in me, and just that awareness of it makes it to where it's not about me against you.
Right.
That's really where you want to keep that thought in mind. It's not about me against you. It's like sometimes I'm the butthole, right?
Should I not agree? Yes. Sometimes you are the butthole. Just kidding. No, I've never seen you be a butthole, but because this is our conversation. This is always our conversation. We're always like talking about these amazing conversations, and then breaking everything down to a giggle. It's pretty funny.
Well, because to me, people take things way so seriously.
Yeah.
It doesn't have you don't have to address everything so seriously. Perhaps if people lighten up a bit, it's not to say that you don't take action, that you don't take heed to what's important. But if you're so serious about it, it almost is kind of like my concept. No, my concept.
Yeah, it's like a battle of like these spiritual swords. Battling concepts and stuff like that. My sister-in-law used to call it, because I went through my period of studying theology, and I had my share of being raised in religion and doing different things, and then she was a born-again Christian, and her and my brother actually both told me that I was going to hell. And I said I had to laugh at they said I'm going to hell because I'm evil. And I said I have to laugh at your idea of evil, because here I am, I'm organizing people to feed people at shelters, but and you
make good coffee.
I make good coffee. I'm very loving mother. I do all these. I'm a decent human being, and yet your concept of what evil is funny to me, because that's evil. But she used to call it our biblical swords, but it's like, because we would go back and forth, and it goes in alignment with how I learned the lesson that you're just talking about, taking things so seriously, because I learned that it is not my job. It's not my job to convince anybody of anything. And I think that took a huge load off, right? Because we get into these conversations over concepts of religion, spirituality, right, wrong, blah, blah, blah. And I think underlying a lot of that is our need to convince the other person that our way is the right way.
Exactly.
And I learned, you know what? Everyone has their own reality. Everyone has their own point of reference. People can be influenced, but people will only take the influence of a dialogue or a conversation on something when they're open to it, right? So when you're approaching someone who is very closed in their concept of their reality, and you're trying to throw, you're trying to throw your religion against their religion. They're not going to hear anything you say. It's just going to create a fight, and that creates more negative energy. So what I learned was, after doing that for so many years of trying to reason with something that I felt was totally unreasonable, I'm like quoting theological, archaeological fact, and then arguing with the belief,
right,
which you cannot do.
It's like getting naked with a crocodile.
Exactly. Right? But it exhausted the energy. It consumed my energy as far as every dialogue, every conversation. And it's like, now I've gotten to the point where I learned it wasn't my responsibility to change everybody. It's everyone's responsibility to be happy within themselves. And whatever it is that brings them that joy and happiness is okay, as long as it's not harming other people.
You don't block their path.
No.
And don't allow them.
Block mine.
Yeah, you don't allow them to block yours.
Yeah.
It's you're right. That is a great point. It's, you don't have to agree with anybody, but everybody wants to be heard. So you can listen to them. You don't have to agree with them, and
you don't even have to say, I don't agree with you.
No.
You just go, this is the thing. Mr. Nigglemuggins taught me this, and I use it often. He says he'll listen to somebody that says something that he doesn't agree with necessarily.
Yeah.
He'll listen. You listen intently, and you go, and especially if it arises or raises some fire in you. You know what I mean? Because you really, some people really contradict what you think, and it will
opposite of your core.
Yeah, and you're like, you got this little fire that just ignited, but you're not showing them that. But you just kind of look at him, and he would say, Well, that's one way to look at it. Because you're not agreeing or disagreeing, and you're also not encouraging more conversation about it. And
That's
then you
beautiful.
move on. It's completely neutral.
It's beautiful.
It works like a gem.
Yeah.
And you're not invalidating the person and their beliefs, even if it's totally contrary to yours. You're just saying, I heard you, and that's one way to look at it.
Right.
You make sure that you don't put a lot of inflection, sarcastic inflection.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, because then you might initiate a different response there. But
Yeah.
But anyway, and speaking of birds in the nest, I got shit on yesterday, and it was like a sign of good luck.
That's one way of looking at it.
It is. Well, in Italy, that's a sign of good luck. And I've always, if a bird shits on you. And so we're walking to the store, the grocery store, and out of nowhere, I'm holding my Starbucks and I'm about to take a drink, and I get splat right on my hand. And it looked like dirt, like wet dirt.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, it took me a second, and we both look at it, and I'm like, oh my God, I just got shit on. and then Mr. Niggle breaks out into, well, I go, but why is it like dirt? It looks like dirt. And he's like, well, when they go and they eat the worm, and it's wet outside, they're ingesting a lot of mud and that sort of thing. And so when they poop, it comes out in their poop. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. But it was good luck because my I've been advertising this on my website that one of my biggest things was, I wanted to connect more with people in my work as far as the spirit work that I do. And I've been offering readings to people, but I'm also now offering the readings to people nationally and locally.
Nice.
And I've just been building my business. So I'm going to be advertising in Sedona Journal of Emergence, which is a national magazine. And if you guys have not picked this up, you can get it once a month at Barnes & Noble. And it is the most amazing spiritual magazine because it has channelers, it has psychics, it has healers, light workers. I mean, every kind of healing that you could think of, they're represented in this magazine.
What's it called again?
It's called Sedona Journal. Sorry, I think I said light. Sedona Journal of Emergence. And my ad will be coming out February 1st in the classified section, and it'll be running regularly there so that people know the work that I do, and they can call my 888 number. And I'll give it right now. It's 1-888-673-5060, and you can call directly into me to get your reading. So. And it's $1.99 a minute. So I have that going on. And then all the advertising, I'm going to be doing the Metro and the Classified, which will come out on Wednesday. And so I'm doing all these things. I'm getting a lot of numerology, right? Like 11s for me in pairs of 3s are very good signs for me. And I've been getting all kinds of 11s in pairs of 3s. We got a 33 yesterday on something, which is 3 11s together.
Oh, interesting.
We've been getting things coming in 3s it's 222, and 2 is idealism, and so we're looking at all these things, and all this good stuff was happening already, right? We're getting all these good signs, and all the doors have been opened with this business idea that I had, even starting this podcast. It just happened, and then yesterday we go shopping and I get shit on, and that's another good sign. So I'm like, woo, yeah. I'm like, this is all a good sign.
Now that is an optimist. I'm telling you.
And thank goodness we were literally walking up to the store and they have wipes. They have wipes right outside so people could wipe down the thing. So it's
along with the sign, please do not feed the birds, right?
Yeah, so we just picked up a wipe and we just wiped me off, and on we went with our day, but it was pretty cool. So things are going good. So now you want to move on to our weird shit around the world?
Well, actually, and I actually have a little bit of a segue.
Oh, okay.
Because you're talking about poop and weird shit. So, just in case there's some stank in that shit, we got a new product out called, and this is a real product. I was dying laughing. You've got to check it out on YouTube. It's Poop Pori.com.
Oh my God, I've seen a commercial for that.
It's so funny. This lady is sitting on a toilet in all different situations, like in a tutu, and this woman is just like very highbrow and very sophisticated. So that's what makes it funny, because it's so opposite of what she's advertising, and she's talking about things that are very unladylike. However, it's scientifically proven to be stink-free. They give you a stink-free guarantee. And
oh my God, that's
anyways, they
hilarious.
have over. I mean, I'm mad at myself. I am so mad at myself that I didn't think of something like this, because it's right up my alley. It's stupid, and it smells. and it has aromatherapy. My two favorite things. I love things that
Stupid
smell
and
good.
aromatherapy.
And if it's stupid, if it's ridiculous and it smells good, I'm attracted to it.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
So anyway,
So how does it work? So
well,
tell
okay.
everybody.
The instructions are of this. It's pretty easy to follow.
Okay.
First, you spritz the bowl. Okay.
So meaning the water, not the literal bowl.
Well, actually, the bowl. I think the
'Cause the
water,
bowl's the
the porcelain, and the water. You just do a
Okay.
light spritzing of the water, and
Okay.
you probably want to get that into the water. Okay, and so then the next step is to poo.
Okay.
Okay, so then once you poo, then what happens, and I mean it must work because they've had like over 5 million of them sold. They have a rating of 4.8 stars on Amazon. Okay, so
Out of 5, not 10.
Out of 5, yeah. And so anyways, what happens is the aromatherapy encapsulates the poo, and so it removes any evidence of, their business is to disguise your business.
Yeah.
So anyways, it is a real product. It's available in 100 uses, royal flush, deja poo, and the one that I personally think that
Deja poo. What is
deja
What is that?
Deja poo. You'd have to go and check the thing. I didn't write
You didn't
down.
research
yeah,
that one.
I didn't
Is that the
research
same
it.
company though, or is
Yeah,
it okay?
yeah. This is
Oh
the
my gosh,
3
that's
different
hilarious.
choices, and the one that I could see in my bathroom would be now available in Trampa Crap in spicy orange.
Trap a
Trappa Crap
Trap
in spicy
my
orange.
God.
Yeah, in spicy orange. Like,
Okay, so people can actually go to YouTube to see this commercial if you type it in, because
Poopery, yeah.
commercials are all on there. Some people, of the listeners, may have already seen it, because I've seen it a couple times, and I think at one point she says if you have to drop a missile or something.
yeah.
And it literally.
she's so funny.
Yeah, because she's like this lady in a dress, and they will literally show her like she's talking about situations in which you would not want anyone to smell your stink after
Right.
you've taken a dump, like in
Which
a public
I think
party.
would be all situations.
Yeah, but then they show her on a pot in the middle of like a room where people are like
Unless you're my husband. maybe.
eating hors d'oeuvres and standing around with their champagne, and she's like talking about this product on the
Right.
toilet in the middle of all of them, and they're all fancy dressed, and she talks about firing off a missile, and
Right.
you don't want your people to know that you've just taken a dump.
Men are different, though. I don't know. I can't speak for all of them, but there's certain individuals. I'm not going to name names, Mr. Gandhress, but where they think it's actually funny to go in and
Oh my gosh.
leave their stamp on the world, per se, and leave it. So they can see the reactions of people.
Ew,
I know, aren't they gross?
That
And they
is
do that
gross.
at home, and oh my goodness.
Are
It's
we
like,
talking about smell or literally leaving
no,
logs?
we're talking the
leaving
evidence.
logs.
We're talking the evidence. This is that's my
That is hilarious.
That's my cross to bear. But anyways,
So that's cool. So that's a good product. I want to get that too. I've always thought about doing that, but then you see it and you forget.
right.
It's not in any stores though. It's all online.
Yeah, I guess it's online. I mean, I suppose you could probably try to make your own if you wanted to. You could try.
Well, but they have it. They
Scientifically.
Have, there's something scientifically done inside that.
But maybe in a pinch.
spritz. All right, there she goes. There she goes.
You can work it out. I mean, there's nothing worse than, say, going to a party and the stupid toilet doesn't flush, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
do you always check for the plunger? Is there, if I ever have to do my
Yeah.
business somewhere, I always look to make sure there's a plunger in there because toilets are weird. Some toilets have issues with their plumbing and flushing.
Right.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to be embarrassed if, this toilet doesn't flush. And then and then there's like a line of people waiting
Right.
to use the restroom and you're like,
perhaps
it's
I have
obviously-
tunnel vision, pardon the pun, because when I got to do my business,
I always look. I have to look.
Yeah.
Okay, so was that it for your weird stuff?
Well, actually, there's. I had a couple. I don't know how we're doing on
Well,
time.
let me
you
do
go ahead.
mine
You
and then
go
we'll get
ahead.
back to that. Okay,
Okay.
so I had something else planned because I was looking up something else and I'm going to save it, so I'm not going to tell you what that something else was, but I totally had planned to lay out this other weird thing that I found online, and then I found this by accident and this kind of trumped it.
Uh-oh.
So there's this guy who wants to create a movement where they actually put McDonald's in churches.
What?
And he's calling it, and I'm not lying, I swear. I am not lying. You guys can look this up because he has a website and it's called McMass. McMass.com. And so I highlighted some of this stuff to give you an idea of like what this person is thinking. So he says it's time for churches to engage with entrepreneurship. By combining church and McDonald's, we can create a self-sustaining, community-engaged, popular church and an unparalleled McDonald's restaurant. Their hashtag is Feast for Jesus. And the writer of this said that's absolutely priceless because with a saying like that, the company by no means is hiding the fact that it wants to exploit people's faith to make a profit. And so it's interesting. He has some interesting things. He says that I didn't know this, 10,000 churches closed down last year.
Oh.
And 3 million people leave the church every year in the United States alone. And I mean, personally, when I read that, I was like, yay!
They're leaving for bacon for Buddhism.
Okay, that's a new website. We'll have somebody look that up and see if it exists. Oh my, you have to write that down. Bacon for Buddhism.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious.
Then it'll wind up into like wars of like who has the best food. Oh no! But
Oh yeah.
pescatarian has
it's like the war of religions,
Yeah.
right? But now it becomes the the McMass versus the bacon Buddhism versus like everybody's trying to. Oh my gosh, that is such a hilarious thought. But I thought that was so funny because they're not even thinking about. I don't know. I mean, first of all, McDonald's is not healthy. It's not a healthy treat. It's like there's
GMO central.
GMO, animal cruelty. I mean, and by the way, I eat a vegetarian diet with the exception of we eat fish on occasion, and it's not like daily. We're organic. We're very non-GMO. We don't, we don't put MSG in our body. I mean, unless it's for, we've allowed like a slight percentage for like chips that we absolutely love, and it's more like that's our junk food that we allow, and it's on occasion. Like mine would be taco flavored Doritos. Now Doritos in themselves are the worst kind of chip because it's like MSG, it's salt, everything. I mean, it's like the crappiest stuff, and put it in there, it tastes good. Okay, but I will allow myself to eat that every once in a while. We're not even talking like on a regular. It's like if I just feel like I want that taste, then I'll let myself do it.
Yeah.
But like 98% of our diet is completely healthy, and so I feel that's okay because most of the like chips that I do and stuff, they're all healthy. The Kettles
Right.
non-GMO brand, and I just found a new one from Barbara's who makes the most amazing cheese puffs and jalapeno Cheetos, and they taste good. I mean, they literally taste good.
Yeah.
They don't taste like, oh, I bought some fake brand and it's dull. Like the taste is kind of
Right.
So, like with this idea, it's not even. It's basically not even having a consciousness towards healthy living and eating. It's like, okay, their thing was, well, McDonald's has 70 million served daily. So the church plus McDonald's means that, it will bring people into the church.
That just goes to show
But
how
then-
people think differently.
But it's interesting because then it's like, okay, but then the people are coming there they're only coming there to get the McDonald's. And then basically the church becomes a non-sacred place because people are just sitting down to eat their McDonald's in the church.
I'm thinking maybe when you're eating and actively getting diabetes, you at least can then have a prayer.
Before you die.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
you've eaten McDonald's.
I hope that this doesn't clog my arteries.
Yeah, it's like, and then they're going to have
Right.
people in there with flyers, saying, with flyers of the documentary Super Size Me, to show, like, don't eat this and go to this church because you're going to die from this food. I mean, so it's an interesting concept. I've never heard of that before. So to me, that was my weird shit from around the world.
Right.
I don't know, does it actually say
To each his own.
where it is, but you guys can look it under McMass's website, mcmass.com, and they're trying to raise $1 million, and so far from this he's only raised $103.
Oh, well, good job.
I'm sure that's different now.
Maybe they could
He
have
said
like a
it just-
drive-through.
Yeah, but then how does that get people in the church?
Well,
it doesn't get people
I'll
worshiping,
have
but
a
the idea
tuna.
is flawed, right? Because it's like people, okay, so say people know that there's a McDonald's in there and they just like McDonald's and they are totally not into church whatsoever.
Right.
Now they know there's a McDonald's in your church and they don't particularly like treat your church as sacred or any kind of spirituality.
No.
So now it's just become an in and out with their food. Then they're going to be throwing wrappers on the floor. Like, how does that honor whatever he's trying to do? Like, if he's trying to honor and bring churches back, he's obviously a religious person and he's trying to combine spirituality with people's eating habits.
Bless
right?
this fish fillet. Yeah.
McFish
For an
or
extra
whatever.
$1, you can have a blessed fish fillet.
Yeah, I don't understand the concept is flawed because it how does it honor your church? It may put people in your pews, right? But they're only in your pews because they're eating a meal.
Right.
And then they're probably rolling up the trash, the wrapper, and then leaving it like on the pew because you probably won't have any trashes there. Because pews don't typically have trash cans right there, and then they leave and there's all this yellow wrappers all over the
They
place.
should. There's puke. Anyway. No, but I mean, it goes to show
Interesting.
that you have to use your own sense of logic. If you follow and you think outside of yourself of what makes sense, just verbatim, that goes to show what a rabbit hole that you can go down. I mean, it's we rely on others to tell us what to do and how to do it. Yeah. And how about listening to something and go, how much sense does that make to you?
Yeah.
Right. Now, maybe for somebody that might be the most awesome thing in the world, but I think you ultimately have to make your decision on something and don't follow Buddhism or don't follow Christianity or anything if it doesn't seem logical to you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. We're getting deep.
Yeah, we are. Okay,
Deep
so let's move along because I want to have enough time to get through a couple more things. I do want to talk about the languages of love.
Okay.
We are going to have right before that a message from our mystic Manx, and then but before we move on, I want to do a pre-recorded interview that I did with Mr. Niggle Muggins. We went out on Thanksgiving, which was hilarious because I woke up to him rolling over and smiling at me and saying, Happy Genocide Day. Which just shows that the cynicism is right there, immediately. But we just cracked up laughing, and his whole thing all day was Happy Genocide Day.
I don't get it. What's this about?
Because the whole thing of Thanksgiving is, the Pilgrims and the Indians came together and they created this, symbiotic relationship, but they really didn't do that. The Indians helped them learn how to create food because they were literally starving when they first landed where they didn't know how to cultivate the land, but the Indians that were already there did.
Right.
They tried to do it their way for quite a while, and people were dying of starvation, and so they went out to the Indians and asked for help, and the Indians taught them how to cultivate the land to raise corn.
I didn't know this. Okay.
Yeah, this is like the story, and I don't want to go on too long because this is a long topic, but you can do the research of this and it'll show you. But just like in every time that, like, you know, someone comes and discovers America, they have always come in and befriended the indigenous people or the Native Americans before they completely annihilated them. And that's basically what happened. After they received the help from them and they made them, they helped them survive basically, and they became
Self-sufficient.
yeah, there was another word I was looking for, but they became self-sufficient. Then they started to incorporate their religion into everything because things were good. Then they were trying to force the Indians into their religious doctrines, and then that's when a lot of killing and other stuff started happening. Land stolen, blah, blah, blah. This is historical stuff you can read, but I don't want to talk about that. But that is the reason why he woke up and said, Happy Genocide Day, because it's really what happened was they became annihilated. So, but you got way too deep on that. That was supposed to be funny. Okay, so anyway, we were talking, we went out to eat, and we went to breakfast, and we had this great breakfast, so you're going to hear a lot of silverware clanking in the background, but listen to, I just basically off the cuff asked Mr. Niggle Muggins a question about transitions in life, because a lot of people right now, especially a lot of healers, have been, over the last couple of years, have been experiencing a lot of transitions in life and a lot of trying to figure out a new direction for their life because the old one no longer works. And so I just decided off the cuff to take advantage of the moment and ask him a question. So you're going to hear me trying to phrase the question in a certain way, and you're going to hear me say like a lot because I didn't have a clear-cut question per se. I was trying to think of what that question was, but he gave a beautiful answer, so I wanted to take a moment to play that on the show.
Okay.
And then we can talk about, you know, anything that came up out of that from you. Okay, so here's Mr. Niggle Muggins.
So, like, the question, I guess, would be, like, with new transitions in mind, like, what do you feel is, like, the proper, like, if you're in the tunnel, what do you feel, like, that time frame where you don't know what you want to do with your life? Like, what's the best course of action?
Is to find out where that shadow is, and then look the opposite direction to know where the light is.
Ooh, that's very good.
It's like the allegory of the cave.
What's
The
that?
allegory of the cave, you know, Plato's saying people are too busy looking at the shadows of themselves, but they don't realize they just gotta turn half the circle, turn around and see where the shadow is coming from. And taking that journey to look why they're looking at their shadow, but they have to find out, okay, how's the shadow being developed? Gotta turn around and find where that light is.
It's the root of the light, instead of just the shadow of it.
So
It's like that one thing
it's a
about
transition.
everyone's pointing at the coconut and people are staring at the finger.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like,
People, I know.
Stop looking at the
Yeah.
finger, look at the coconut. Okay.
Or sometimes they're worried about how am I going to get the coconut off the tree when just look on the floor, there's several of them that drop right in front of your face.
That's true, you know, and sometimes it is right in front of your face, because how I had that conversation with the Gandhress that one time, and I had just come out of school and trying to do all this other stuff, you know, like educational stuff, and then her comment to me was, maybe you were always already doing what you wanted to do, you know, like that was the coconuts on the floor, they were already there, but I just had to repackage how I was doing things, you know, or I had to look back at the light, not focus on the shadow of what's happening, or
who we are.
the appearance, like the shadow is maybe our
our
perception
of contemplation. It's our just because the shadow gives us an outline. But what's interesting by light, we can symbolize the sun or light as our path to our own truth and happiness. The shadow changes. It's pretty metaphorical, right? It changes wherever we're positioned in the world. That sun that creates our shadow, and it's the shadow moves all the time. So it's pretty symbolic when you think about it.
Yeah.
We relate that to how we observe our lives.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Well, sounds wise. It sounds I don't know how to articulate. I understand what he's
Wow, that really
saying.
took you down into a thoughtful space, huh? It got real quiet. You're like,
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing because it was a way of him saying, like, it was a way of, in a metaphor, talking about how, our shadow changes throughout the life because the light's coming in from different directions.
The shadow knows.
But the shadow is almost like our image of ourself, right? And sometimes we get dark, and we're like in this image of ourselves, and maybe the image of ourselves is old, right? This is what I've been experiencing, like
It's distorted.
right.
Oh, I get
So
you.
I
Like
have
my
this
shadow might make me look fat. Yeah, I gotcha.
But it's
just kidding.
you can look at it in many different ways.
Right.
But one of the ways that I really like looking at it is like the shadow could be, a metaphor for an image of yourself, and maybe you have that old shadow of your, of image of yourself, and you've
Baggage.
changed. It could be baggage. It could just be what you used to do in life, and now it's not working.
Right.
And so maybe the sun has shifted and it's created a new shadow, but you're still trying to live in the old shadow, and so it's
Right.
like, okay, maybe stop looking at the shadow, like maybe stop living in the shadow of what you used to be. Maybe look at the root, which is the light.
Right.
Look at the light, because that's really where you are. It's who you are right now, and then figure out what makes me happy, and then whatever it is, do that. And stop trying to force other things to keep working when they're not. You know what I mean? And for me, that's kind of where a lot of this stuff came to fruition, because I had a self-image of myself from doing what I used to do, and it wasn't working anymore. And it's like, okay, now I lived in this kind of dark shadow for a couple of months because I felt purposeless. I felt like I don't know what I'm doing now, because this was such a big part of my identity.
Right.
And it wasn't that I was going to move away from, say, healing or what have you, but it was like it needed to start over in a repackaging, like gathering the coconuts that were on the floor. I didn't have to go up and climb for new coconuts, because the coconuts were all there. I just had to assemble them.
Right.
And it's like, okay, this is my new package here, and this is what I'm doing. Thus, the podcast and the 800 number that allows people worldwide to call me instead of just trying to find a client here or there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's how I took it from, and I like how he uses things that I would never use, like the allegory of the cave. That's Plato. So that's his education speaking. It's like I have not been exposed to that, so I love listening to him
Different
talk.
perspectives.
Yeah, he comes in with some different knowledge that I think is awesome.
Yeah, I think that's the fun part about living, is getting outside of yourself and seeing how others will anticipate or see something. You don't have to take it in, but maybe a little piece of it you do take in. I think that is really interesting. Do you think like perhaps keeping a journal of your thoughts, and that way you get it out of your head and you put it onto the paper, and then you can read through, blocks of time and see if you can see your own patterns. Perhaps it gets, because we're emotional beings, sometimes we get so caught up into the emotion of it that we stand in our own way. So if you can get to a point where you can read it and look at it more objectively, then perhaps that could answer your own questions, because I think we have the answer to our own questions. We do, but we are just not confident. We're still trying to get the answer from somewhere else, or putting our own
the answer that we want. So here's the interesting thing, and I see this a lot in my healing practice when I work with other people too. Because of the shadow, right? We have this image of we're directing everything exactly how it's supposed to be, and we get in our own way. There was a movie that it was brilliant what the guy said. He says, it's about this guy who comes to this guy he thinks is a psychologist in his apartment building, but really he goes to the wrong door and it's like a trucker.
Oh, yeah.
And so he sits down and they're talking and he thinks he's talking to a psychologist. He has all these problems and he's talking to him, and he said, I think the truck driver says, he's like, mate, you already had the answer. You came to me because you had the answer and you didn't like what it was. And so we go to someone else and we're trying to figure it out. And what you realize is that you're trying to always force something that you want versus looking at the door that's open.
Yeah.
Right? Like the door is already open, but you're saying, no, not that. And it's like, I'm trying to do it this way. Just this way is how I'm going to do it. And then you're hitting all these roadblocks and all these other things. And then this door over here is open, but it's not the one you want to go through because you have this preconceived idea of how you want to do things. And when you just let go of all of that and you just say, okay, what makes me happy? And then what doors are open? Where am I not hitting all these roadblocks? Maybe I should take a look in that direction. And that helped me, because for me, being stuck in that for a while, I also found that I was comparing myself to the world's view of where I should be at my age, and what I...
For me, it'd be a convalescent home, but anyways.
Oh, shut up. You're not that says something about me, because I'm not that much younger than you. So you are not anywhere near that. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's a transitional thing, which is what he's talking about. And I thought it was important because we do that to ourselves. It's like what we do to ourselves is we start comparing our lives to the successes of other people's lives in the world and what they're doing what we feel where we feel we should be at this age in life and what have you. And that really starts to lower your self-esteem in yourself. It starts to make you feel unworthy, like you're worthless, like, all these negative feelings, like just sad because you feel like you don't have a purpose or what have you. And
living in your shadow.
You're living in your shadow. And so
such a good
it is.
thought.
And so what I did was it wasn't like this one light bulb that went off, but it was a collection of asking why am I feeling this way? And then I realized a pattern to I'm always feeling this way when I'm doing looking for a job or right? And I'm feeling this way maybe because I'm feeling like right now what I'm currently doing is no longer working, and this is what made me feel good. And so you start trying to do the world's way of what success is, and that has never fit me because I'm out of the world more than I'm in it, because my head is just into spiritual things and seeing spirits and talking to people about that and all these different things that I do.
Right.
I've never been in the world that way. I've had to have a job and do stuff like that, but spiritually I've always been more out of it than in it, just functioning the way I need to take care of the house or what have you.
Right.
But for the longest time now, it's all been spiritual work. And so then trying to go back into creating a new purpose because my spiritual work at the time was not working, and trying to do it the world's way, everything about it felt yuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just made me feel terrible about myself, and the more that I tried to do it, the more rejection I got. And it was all like a big sign that the universe was saying no. It's what I call the orange cones. The universe puts orange cones all over. And you keep pounding down on it, and it keeps throwing more orange cones. And it's those orange cones are to tell you you're in the wrong direction. The door is not opening up here because you're not supposed to go in that direction. Turn around. What else? Look and see what else is out there. What door is currently open for you, or maybe be creative. And that's what ultimately I did. I turned back around and looked at my practice and who I am and what's important to me and what I really want to do with my life. Where do I really want to spend my time? And when it was, you had said that comment, maybe you were always doing what you wanted to do, made me take a look and say, well, what have I always been doing?
Right.
And when I looked at that, I'm like, okay, she was absolutely right. Maybe it's the same, I'm doing the same stuff. Maybe I need to look at how I was doing it and repackage it. And it was this layers of awakening until finally it hit that one idea. Then I started doing my research online. How can I bring more people into me than I am now? And then, well, how do psychics do it? And then I started researching that. And then this pay-per-call line came up and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is it. If I put advertising here and here, one's national, one's local, I have this number, I make the business investment and I just get it ready and I go and I plug it in and boom, wait for it to happen and let the universe build it slowly while I still have my private clientele that I see.
Right.
But once I made that decision, my whole life it changed, and every single door opened up for me. Like being able to save the business investment costs happened like within 2 months. And, we're always kind of living hand to mouth, so the fact that happened too so easily was another sign that it was just meant to happen this way. So I think that's
where your passion is fueling it too. You're not just taking it and saying, well, how do I make the X amount this month and X amount? I mean, it might, it always comes down to it. We don't.
Yeah, you want to make an income.
You have to, and
live.
There's nothing wrong with that. We all do, but it's not the number one motivation. The number one motivation is coming from how is it that you feel like, what's your, metaphorically, where's your cloud at? That's where do you want to be at?
Yeah.
Right.
So the next thing, let's hear a little, we're going to segue into the next topic, and we're already over an hour, so we're going to go through this kind of quickly. But we're going to hear a message from Mystic Manx, and here it goes.
When love is knocking on your door, open your heart a little more. Don't worry about it, just be free. Things work out as they were meant to be. Meow.
Okay, so the next topic is the languages of love.
I had read this book, The 5 Languages of Love. It's by Gary Chapman, and he's a marriage counselor. Has been a marriage counselor for very many years. And then just recently, I found it on YouTube. He's reading the entire book, and so after 3 hours, you have all this information in your head, and I find that for me even more powerful. And what the 5 languages of love, what he's talking about after being a marriage counselor for so many years, is how people, he equates it to a love tank. Why people, are fall in love and then fall out of love, and why their needs are not being met. And so, there's a process of falling in love, which is all the, the heart flutters and the attention that you pay to each other. But then as time goes on and you have to deal with other aspects of life, then we go off into more of our natural way of being. And what he learned to understand is that people have very different ways of feeling emotionally fulfilled, what they call the love tank. For some people, it's verbal. Like if you don't tell some people you love them daily at least, or very frequently, they are hurt. They need to hear it. Or for other people, it makes them uncomfortable. It's not a big deal at all. For another people, it could be quality time. I'm that way. It's like when you're with me, it's not good enough for you just to be in the room with me. I want to have eye contact. I want you to listen to me. I don't want to see
share an experience.
Your eyes are shifting somewhere else. I want us to be in the experience together. So perhaps for someone else, though, it would be, even for other people, it's gifts. You know, and for gifts that you might think, well, that's shallow, but not necessarily. It could just mean a symbolism, like if someone brings you a flower, or they pick up some radishes because they know you love radishes, right? That it's that to them is like, oh, you thought of me, you know. Or if somebody else, it wouldn't make a, you know, it's where you're bringing home radishes, so what?
And I can attest to that too, because when Mr. Niggle and I were first together, he did something really sweet for me, and it was very domestic, and you know, would be maybe not it was definitely like not this huge expensive gift, but he did something thoughtful with what he bought me. And I remember I came home one time, and this was early on when we started dating, and I opened up the refrigerator, and he had purchased I think he purchased milk for the kids. And he had purchased a sandwich for me, and he purchased I used to drink Folgers coffee, and now we're like really into the good stuff. But he was a coffee
snob,
he was a coffee connoisseur, and he was like, taught me about the beans and how to pick the right beans, you know, by the slickness of the beans. And look at this one, it's totally dry. This is terrible coffee, you know. But he actually purchased me a new, you know, thing of good coffee, and he was going to teach me how to do it. He purchased me a sandwich because he knew I came home from work and I would be hungry. Yeah. And it was just in the refrigerator just waiting for me. And that was something that would be a gift. Someone buying you a gift, and but it meant so much to me because it was more about him. He saw me and saw that I had to take care of the kids all the time and didn't have time to really invest in me. So he made my life easier by doing that little gesture of buying me that. That he cared about my quality of food, you know, like, or drink. He went and said, I'm going to educate you on how to bring quality to your coffee experience, and he wanted to take the time to teach me that. And that was another thing of what was the other one about? Quality of time, investing in me. Where I have issue with is where some people have taken this, and this happens with every concept, right? That someone has this beautiful concept, and there's always people who either take it in a way that's purely materialistic, right? And I told you this, I told you this before. Like, I had seen an interview with a comedian, and the comedian was with these 3 women. One of them was really down to earth with him, but the other 2 were, you know, they just were putting off this very kind of elite, snobbish, I don't know, just this attitude of, you know, being, having this prestige.
What have you done for me lately?
Well, and then he's recently married, and he's this funny guy. He's an Italian, very family oriented. Just got married. They're under a year still, and they were one of them's asking him a question about, you know, well, what's his love language towards her, and you know, what's her love language, and he, of course, he hadn't read this book, so he's like, what are you talking about? And they start talking about it, and she's like, well, one of the girls was saying, my love language is jewelry. But she said it so snobbishly. It was like, it's that turn your stomach kind of thing. It's like you perverted something that is supposed to be a beautiful concept. It's like, but she literally in her soul believed that was, you know, that's what it's about. And he even commented on it. Like, you could tell he was being nice, but he did not like what she said at all. And he was like, so you're telling me that if your husband doesn't buy you jewelry, you don't know he loves you? Right. And she just, well, that's my love language, you know? And I'm like, it's like people who have listened to The Secret or read The Secret, and they say it's all about greed. No, it's not, you know, like, it's not about that. Maybe that's your self-concept of it. It's not about all that. It's about fruition. It's about creating something, you know. If you want it, you can have it, you know.
It's your alignment with the world.
Exactly, that's very well said. It's not just one thing, you know. So with all these concepts, you know, it really is about the balancing of them all. What did you leave off on?
Okay, so with gifts, and then another. There's a couple more. The acts of service. So okay, maybe someone doesn't say I love you all the time, and perhaps, you know, they're in the room, but they are whatever, they're preoccupied, they're not much of a gift giver, but perhaps that person is showing you, and you're not seeing, that they love you by their acts of service. And I think we had a conversation before, like for instance, you've maintained my cars, and you're making sure that the tires are working, and you make sure that all the bills are paid, and fences are mended, all these different things. And I think the Moon Mama and I had talked about this before, and I was saying I think that men tend to be a little bit more acclimated to that. They are not as, I don't think, verbal as women,
which is scientifically proven. They're not as verbal. Yeah, just from young.
Right.
I think what happened was during that time, because whenever we get into the conversation of genetics, is that the right word I want to use about men? Like we were talking about the cavemen, and they wanted to build things, and it's in their genetic code to want to do that and to do it that way. And even when I was taking like a human sexuality course, I always have issue with that, because no, I think what I said to you when we talked about it before was, I think when you're in a survival thing, it's not strictly a male thing. I think that we've learned through conditioning what is male and what is female, and that's a fact we have. I mean, that's a scientific thing.
Yes.
We're conditioned to what women and men
everything.
do. And then there's everyone who just does not fit into that. Most people don't fit into all the traditional views of that. So it's ridiculous that it keeps going on. But we keep saying this idea that it's only men who want to build things, and so I said, look at survival. Like you could read about different people who went through survival experiences, and even there's shows on it. Oh gosh, what are the guys' names? There's two guys, both very masculine. One is lives in Arizona, very spiritual, never wears shoes. Okay, and then the other one has like a military background, and I cannot remember what their show is called, but it's these two guys go out into the world to survive. Now, they are both extremely masculine, okay? But what happens in the show is you have a light bulb going off.
I think that was one of the things I was going to talk about.
Okay, well, you see the light bulb. You see that basically when they're in a survival mode, it's whose strength is in what. So it doesn't mean that a woman's strength may be in one thing and a man's may be in another, but it's not. What I was saying to you before was, how do we know that every single male caveman was strong at, building stuff or, killing the animals, for the food? Like, was Newsweek following them around? Were the paparazzi out there snapping photos of who was doing what? Like, why do we believe that it's just them? Because there are many cultures where, women also do the hunting, or women primarily do the hunting.
Look at the big cats. I
mean, look at the lions. So I think what it shows is that everything is possible in nature. I've gotten this conversation with when we first went strict vegetarian, we had people up in arms, which was weird, about it's not natural to not eat meat. Even in nature, they eat meat. Yeah, but you also, I totally agree with that, but you also have to realize that in nature, there are vegetarians and you're eating them. Like the pigs and all the food that you eat, those are vegetarian animals showing a balance. In sexuality, everything exists in sexuality. Heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, and in studying this in human sexuality class, in nature, with people and with animals. What'd you say?
Trans.
It's all in nature. It's all about a balancing of all of those things. So it's like,
how would they do it during that time though? And they're in the cave and you're transsexual.
Who knows? I mean, but in a lot of Native American cultures, they have what is called the other sex. And it could be male or female that dresses up as either or, and they choose whatever sex that they want to be with. And it's not called trans. It's just, and it's actually, those people are considered the most spiritual. They have another name for it, not just the other. I can't think of it right now, but there is a term, a sacred term that they have for these people. And so if it exists now, it existed back way back whenever, right? We can't
Right.
assume that everything just like boom happened. It's not like that. So my thing is to not think that it's only, men who do the building or men who did the hunting. I was saying like, when you're dealing with survival, everyone is part of that survival. And when a woman got pregnant and had the baby, she didn't get like her 6-week pregnancy package, where she got to sit in the cave and put her feet up on a boulder, and just chill out. No, she didn't get any time off. I mean, she was out there doing what her part was. Maybe it was gathering. Maybe she was part of the hunting. Mm-hmm. She did that all the way up because when you're in survival, every hand needs to be on deck.
Right.
Every hand is doing whatever they are good at. So whether it's male or female, doing hunting and doing the hard, we don't know that, but our culture has said this is what males do and this is what women do, and so males are better at this, but that's not true. Today there's women that build stuff and men can't even touch it.
I give you the PMS challenge, right?
Which is what's the PMS challenge?
Oh man, well, as far as hunting goes, it's like, I mean, maybe that would be like a new therapy clinic or something where you could have PMS and then go and hunt.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I mean, it's like
I mean, so the truth to that is that we don't know. We espouse these things, but we don't know because I think we have to look at the way people in survival strategies are now. Oh, and so I finished this thought though too with the show, the Survivor show. There's several that are out there, but this is two guys, and they're big guys too. What was really interesting about that is that the military one was the one that ended up being the hunter. And the spiritual one, who was also very masculine, ended up being the gatherer and the builder of the tents and that sort of thing because he was better at that. Not because one was more masculine than the other. He was great at being able to look and know exactly what the plants were. He knew exactly which ones that he could eat. He had a skill set, and that determined that he was more the one that was going to like get the house ready, and he was going to gather what herbs and fruits and whatever was around there where they were going to set up their house. And his job was to gather that in, while the other one was really good at hunting, and he went out and strayed farther away in order to hunt and bring it back. Now, neither one of them are female.
right.
So it isn't about like this genetic link that this is how it is. I think that it really comes down to every person did what was needed of them in order to survive based on their skill set.
Yeah,
That's the way I look at it.
You're aware of your perceptions, but also know that those perceptions may not be right. And that's, again, stepping out of your shadow as far as, thinking that you have to perform a certain way or be a certain way. I mean, maybe it's the guy that wants the gift. We always assume it's the woman that's after that. But perhaps a guy is thrilled if you bring him home a bag of Doritos or whatever. That might be his love language. So you can
and
never
they're very
assume.
sensitive.
Or maybe it's the woman that is after the sexual relationship. But again, we always assume it's going to women need the romance and the tenderness.
We know that's not true anymore because all these conditioning, these beliefs and conditioning we're seeing being broken all the time now. Women are very much more sexual, and they're very much more out about their sexuality. They're not ashamed to say that they have a sexual drive, and it doesn't make them a whore now because they do. And they can be the pursuer, and some men like it and some men don't like it, just like some women pursue and some women don't want to pursue. Right. The point is that everybody out there is whatever normal is. There is no normal. It means that there's room for everybody.
My mom has a saying, and that is, for every pot, there's a lid.
And I have a saying, for every rip, there's a torn.
There you go.
All right. Well, I think we should finish up on that. And I had a great time. This was an awesome first podcast. High five. And we are planning on doing this weekly, and I hope you guys continue to tune in. You can find us on YouTube, of course, under the Harlow Moon Readings, but just type in the Moon Mama and the Gandhress on YouTube, and Yeah, and subscribe to our channel so you get updates whenever I post our new podcast. You can also go to harlowmoonreadings.com and the podcast will also be there. And then please do send in any comments that you have regarding the conversations that we just had. You can also email audio files to harlow@harlowmoonreadings.com. And if you email it to me, though, know that if I like it, I'm going to use it on the air. So only send me audio files that you're okay with me sending. But yeah, I mean, ask us questions you want to talk about, anything at all. Okay, and did you have anything else to say before we give you a little wisdom from the Dolly Doggy?
Well, just perhaps, what's your love language? What is it that you sense about that you need or your partner needs? How does that apply to you? And or like even weird shit around the world, what do you think is interesting? Let us know. I think that would be cool. So anyways, peace out.
Yeah, send that stuff in. So yeah, okay, so peace, you guys. And now a message from our Dolly Doggy.
Dharma of the dog. Let go of blame. Let go of guilt. Let go of fear. But most of all, my friends, let go of that stake